I think given that it's the circumstance of an exit, which is really unique of its own. It's not you kind of got a high paying job and you just want to manage that on an annual basis. This is a one-time deal.
What are some of the tax strategies you guys use to help them not have to pay the capital gains tax?
So if you're thinking capital gains, you're thinking more like a private company. If you're, and this is most transactions, right? Most transactions, at the end of the day, could be a founder started the business and they've gotten to that point. It's time to sell it. It still could be family owned, and even a mid-sized business where the second, third generation has it, and it's still privately owned. The corporate side's a little bit different, but even in that situation, you sold it to a bigger company. You got this big challenge of capital gains. So that's some of the stuff I'm learning. The fundamentals I know is like the obvious is you're going to have some taxes due. Uh, Things that you don't think about is like what's your local state obligations, because it may be worth for you to relocate if it's going to be that big of an exit. You may be surprised in how much of a difference that would make. And I've seen that. I've seen founders that literally relocate to Texas or otherwise no state income. And
Yeah.
that then I guess you got your other means too when it comes to private company. And so like you have the right size and threshold to do some of these vehicles, but setting up those trusts that certain states are a little friendlier about, being able to manage your funds there. But I disclaim all this with just this is stuff I hear. I'm not a professional tax advisor on this stuff. I think
Yeah.
there's some cool vehicles, Pierce, that you're a lot more familiar with regarding it. But I think given that it's the circumstance of an exit, which is really unique of its own. It's not you kind of got a high paying job and you just want to manage that on an annual basis. This is a one time deal,
Yeah.
and whether it's a seven figure, eight figure, nine figure, 10 figure, exit. I mean, that nature of it is how do you handle it? Because people, you want to sort of retain the value you created. And then I think there's objectives to it too, because a lot of people aren't just going to get buried with all that cash. So understanding like what are some of your long term goals, is a portion of that geared towards social causes, because then you can start thinking of that, and that's like a cleaner transaction if you can put that into a foundation earlier and not, knowing that's
Yeah.
sort of here's your goal. If you've done your family succession planning there, you're like, hey, this is what I want to do is give back to causes and things like that. um, then yeah, then you can plan that earlier and like I said, make it a lot cleaner, easier. Um, so those are just some of the general things that are like pretty one-on-one common stuff that come up from folks that I talk to that go through exits. I had a small one, and even then, it was just more of working through the accountant because it's a lot of people's portfolios checks and balances, so it's very unique to each person. um, but yeah, I'd be curious to hear what have you seen, if you've seen anything unique for those scenarios, Pierce.
Yeah. So one of the cool things that we do over here at Capital Gains Tax Solutions is we leverage a strategy called the Deferred Sales Trust. It's not to be confused with the Delaware Statutory Trust, but it essentially allows you to exit any highly appreciated asset, including um, a business or a stock or highly appreciated primary real estate or commercial real estate, and defer the tax and put it into an investment business trust, essentially, that you can basically kind of use to fund some other investment projects. For example, we had a gentleman who sold a $2.5 million business, and his basis was zero, and he deferred, I don't know, $600,000 in tax or so, and he put that into a community development project in Tennessee where they're building 72 multifamily units. So you can defer the tax and you can invest it in other places and all that kind of stuff. And what's interesting, and so we talked a little bit about the carryover, right? So I use it down here in Newport Beach. So I'm located in Newport Beach, right? And what's really unique about the Newport Beach area is that there is so many homes that are primary homes that have just shot up in so much value over the past few years. Uh, it's just such a highly appreciated market, and California is so, tax burden heavy state that, these people, like, for example, we had there's a gentleman that bought two houses on the beach in the 90s, and his basis was like 1.2 million bucks. He's trying to sell them for $11 million. That's like a $4 million capital gains tax after you account for the depreciation and all that kind of stuff. Like, so four of the $10 million you're going to make is going to the government. So, as one of these, like, real estate agents down here who has this competitive advantage, like, look, Mr. Seller, like, you can literally save $4 million listing your property with me, right? Like, even if I sell it for, $1 million less, $2 million less, you're still going to net an extra $1.5 million coming with me, like, on the back end, like, because it's not about what you make, it's about what you keep. So, in your world, right, in M&A, 1031s don't really exist. You can't really 1031 a business, right?
Yep.
And so what do? If you have some sort of value add where you're like, hey, look, like, on top of that, like, I can save you, 30% on your taxes, and you don't have to move to Nevada. You can if you want to, but you don't have to, right? Like, might still be a good play if you're moving out of California, but that's a huge competitive advantage. So talking about that cross industry type of, conceptual move could be really interesting for you.
Yeah. No, those are always interesting. Like I said, I think that's kind of why it's so important. You got to work with some tax advisor when you're going through that early, like a
Early is the
year
key.
early.
Yeah. Early is definitely the key.